want a war, you're going to get one.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
Back for another week to talk football.
Game on. Game on.
Can't say that the games all went the way I wanted them to, but boy, did we have a lot of.
What happened? What happened?
Oh, nothing. I can't talk about that. Remember,
All I know is, ladies and gentlemen, we are free of the.
Well, just remember, I'm like every other fan out there that's superstitious. And if you think playing that intro was the only thing I was doing while the Vikings were winning, that ain't nothing, man. I was wearing the same underwear. I had the same T-shirt on. I sat on the couch the same way. But no, that's all. That's all. I don't have to worry about that. We're not talking about it anymore. We're not talking about it anywhere.
Oh, we're talking about the NFC North tonight. So yes, we will be talking about it.
So let's bring on the other half of our astute show.
Well, good evening, fellas.
I'm glad you're finally giving that pair of underwear a break.
Yeah, I was getting pretty stiff.
7 straight weeks. Woo.
Yeah, it was getting pretty stiff. There was a little bit of chafing going on, that's for sure.
Yeah, last week there was a green haze around you. I figured that was.
Jeez, that might be too much. That's too much.
All I got to do is bring it up, and these guys take it from there.
It's just nice. Just a nice little intro to the show this week. Beautiful. The moon is out. Here we go. Let's get it rolling.
So let's start off. There isn't a whole lot to talk about, but we'll start off with Brett bringing us up to snuff on the UFL.
Very limited news this week. Anthony Beck did a podcast. What was it? Monday, guys. And he kind of threw some UFL coaches under the bus. Bob Stoops and a couple others saying that, they pretty much just let the GMs do whatever they want and assign them the players, and then they just come and coach when the season's up. Well, Beck says he wants to be a lot more involved. That way, if they don't win, it's all on him. And just the way he put it, he's taking a lot of heat over that. And, I shared it to our page. Also today, him and a couple of the players went and checked out the dome with the new turf and the LED lights. Again, they're going to have 6 home games there next year. I think kickoff's March 28th. All the other team season tickets are on sale. Nothing is verified yet that it is Ford Field in Michigan, but supposedly that's where we're at. I got a couple other little snips today. There's definitely going to be boots on the ground in every city, including St. Louis, Memphis, Birmingham, you name it. Try to help market and get more tickets sold this year, help with attendance. Each team's got their own ticket guy in place. They have cut way back on their social media. Supposedly one girl is handling that right now for X, Facebook, and Instagram. So that's interesting. hopefully we'll have a show or a open house in the next 2 or 3 weeks in Birmingham, because I'm definitely going to bend Moose and Russ Brandon's ear on some stuff we talk about on the show from time to time. But other than that, that's about where we're at with the UFL.
It'll be here before we know it, but there's a lot of football till then. A lot of football till then.
I'm excited to see that new field because I got to see it, and I got to go on the field and walk around before they replaced it, and it was pretty much an embarrassment. So
I'm thinking Chad's going to be road tripping with me from Northwest Iowa down to St. Louis this spring. I can see it already.
Yeah.
With the turf and those LED lights, man, it looks good. It looks totally different.
We got to get Chad going on spring football. So
yeah, he's got to get up to speed with it. Got to get up to speed.
I don't know. That's when footy starts.
You can do both. You can watch one and commentate on the other. It's fine.
So let's get rolling.
I'd have to have a footy segment then.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's get rolling. We're going to start off with Eric's Big 12. Was there any shakeups, Eric?
You
have to part the sea, guys.
As we get
slide over a little bit.
Check. There we go. As we get rolling through the season, teams are limiting themselves in the Big 12, the Big 10, the SEC as far as contention. And as I see it right now, we're looking at, Arizona State's probably dead in the water, TCU, West Virginia, Arizona, but they still remain in the top 10. But as far as contention in the Big 12 for the playoff spot or spots, I think you have 5 or 6 teams that are still in the mix.
We got an interesting question here, Eric.
Yep.
Do you want to answer that? Yeah,
John David. So I actually have that down here. And I will tell you, of the remaining top 5, ISU probably has the toughest schedule. And I've been saying this for a couple weeks now. I don't anticipate Iowa State remaining in the top spot of the power rankings because, with the schedule that they have remaining compared to a BYU their remaining schedule conference-wise has a combined record of 6-14. So they're already 7-0. So that bodes well for BYU finishing the season undefeated.
So what does Iowa State got coming up?
Iowa State has, and you can pay attention to the names there in the top 10. They play Texas Tech, they play Cincinnati, Utah, which is out, and then Kansas State. So basically we play 3 of the top 6 remaining. BYU schedule, UCF, which, they've got to play UCF, and UCF is tough. They have Utah, Kansas, Arizona State, and Houston. So, I would, what are you laughing at?
So John, he commented on your schedule. He just said, so they play nobody then.
So John's a Missouri fan, right? So we'll talk about how great Missouri is when we get into the SEC, and we'll see how their playoff chances are shaking up. Their playoff chances wouldn't be any better than the Big 12 this year anyway. So
as you talk about Iowa State's upcoming schedule, which one worries you the most?
Probably the biggest game. The only thing that we have going for us is when we play Tech, that's at home. When we play Cincinnati, that's at home. And when we play Kansas State, the last game of the year, that is at home. We play Texas Tech.
Holy crap! Geez.
Well, schedule's a schedule. It's kind of like, what do you do? We got lucky as far as having those guys at home, but going to Utah is still going to be a tough game, even though offensively they look totally inept. They got beat by TCU 13-7. I mean, they've totally fallen off the map when Cam Rising. I think, and I just heard this week their offensive coordinator pretty much called it quits in the middle of the season. So things are falling apart for Utah and the fans of Utah. But as far as that goes, the Kansas State game is probably, the biggest one. But if you look past anybody while you get to Kansas State, I mean, good luck. So definitely out of the top, I would say, Iowa State probably has the toughest remaining schedule, then Texas Tech, then Kansas State, and then BYU as far as the top 4. Colorado has Cincinnati and Texas Tech left. And Colorado seems to have righted the ship a little bit as far as being consistent on both sides of the ball, as long as they can avoid injury. And the biggest problem for Iowa State on top of schedule is, we're playing with a bunch of freshmen and sophomores in the linebacking core. We've been decimated with injuries across the defensive side of the ball. And, will that play a factor? I don't know. But it certainly does not bode well for you. One of the starting linebackers this week, for example, in the UCF game was not even on the depth chart at the beginning of the season. So they have injury problems on the defensive side of the ball. So like I said, BYU is in the catbird seat as far as the Big 12 goes going forward. And then right in the top, Arizona State with the quarterback issues. TCU could be a factor in knocking somebody off. West Virginia, I thought West Virginia was going to be tougher, than they have been. They've dropped some games at home the last couple weeks. They haven't become the team I thought they were going to. And then Arizona. But, basically the Big 12 comes down to basically like any other conference this time of year. There's 5, maybe 6 teams that can make some noise and end up in the top. Cincinnati's definitely been the surprise.
So let's bring Chad on, because I got a question. I looked at they come out with a playoff, projected playoff if the season ended today, and they had the 12 teams that were in it. The one thing that I guess I wasn't completely aware of until I saw it the last couple of days is the champions of the, I guess they call it the Power Four.
Power Four now, yep.
Whatever, are going to get the first 4 seeds with a first round bye. Automatic bids, yep. And I guess, do you guys question that like I do? Face it. If Iowa State runs the table and they go undefeated, do they, in your eyes, are they still considered a top 4 team in the country?
I think they should get an automatic bid. I don't think they should get an automatic one of the top 4 spots. No. And that's not just, that's anybody. It could be a Big Ten team, the overall record doesn't matter. So some 3-loss team could upset Oregon or Penn State in the Big Ten title game. And then here you go.
Well, I think when they went
I don't think they should get an automatic top 4 slot.
When they went to the 12 team playoff though, they still wanted to. I know what they were doing. They are still trying to make the conferences important. Because what that essentially does is, and currently it would be I think it's Georgia. No, yeah. I think it's Georgia now that they beat Texas. I believe Georgia's in the SEC top spot in the conference. I'd have to look at that. Followed by Oregon, followed by Miami, and then followed by Iowa State. Currently, how it shakes out. And then, so I looked at it today. I think there is 4 SEC teams, 3 Big Ten teams.
Right now in the SEC standings, A&M is sitting at the top.
But I think they were projecting. I think they were projecting who they believe was going to win the SEC. All it was is projections of who they thought were going to win the SEC, who they thought were going to win the Big Ten, who they thought was going to win the ACC, and who they thought was going to win the Big 12. You have to do that because if you don't, and let's say, the ACC, for example, pretty much just has, with Florida State falling off the map, they pretty much just have Miami and Clemson. Okay. So in a particular year, where you just have a couple of teams, you've got to secure a spot. If you're only going to look at SEC and Big Ten teams, then to hell with it, But you've got to secure a spot.
Currently, the ACC has 4 teams in the top 25. SMU's at 22, and Pitt is at 19.
Yes, but anything, I think what they did was anything below the 12 mark, they used below the 12 mark as the cutoffs. I think like Notre Dame, Alabama, some of the first teams out. I mean, I actually hope what they do with the 12-team playoff is they legitimately set it up. Not because, Notre Dame is Notre Dame. They don't give them a spot just because of that. I mean, I believe that, Notre Dame's going to have to go undefeated. If you're not going to play in a conference, and I know Army and Navy are better this year, but if you're not going to play in a conference, and you're cherry picking games, you better go undefeated or you're not in the playoff. Period. And
I think Ed wanted my opinion because I've been kind of clowning on the Big 12 a little bit this year, and losing Texas and Oklahoma was such a massive loss for this conference. It really, really hurts the legitimacy. Not saying that BYU, Iowa State, Kansas State, not saying they're Colorado, not saying they're not good teams. I'm just saying everybody looks at it and goes, there's nobody in that conference. There's no big heavyweights. There's no big daddies carrying around sticks.
You could be right.
I'm not throwing aspersions.
No,
I'm
you
just
could be
saying.
right. But I'll give you this example. I remember back in the Fiesta Bowl when Iowa State played Oregon, mighty Oregon. How'd that game work out for them? I mean, you can take and you can look back and you can say, well, yeah, you lost Texas and you lost Oklahoma, but is that a reason why they don't deserve a place at the table?
Well, but if you look at
my contention is the top four seeds. I think that's over the top.
But look at Georgia, look at Alabama, LSU, Tennessee, Texas. Name all the teams.
So
it doesn't seem very equitable to me that you're going to have one of those teams
and
have a shot at the bye.
But listen,
and the ACC is probably a worse offender than the Big 12.
But here's the deal, and I'll run it by you like this: if that's the case, okay, other than the bye, what are we worried about? If those teams are so much better, then those first games are going to be blowouts, and then they're going to go against Miami and Iowa State, and they're going to blow them out, and then it's going to be 3 SEC teams and the Big Ten and a Big Ten team. Anyway,
because why? Because seeding is always very important. That's why everybody freaks out every year in the NCAA when their team doesn't get the right seed or doesn't get the proper seed. It's hugely important. I mean, sitting there, let's say they're at number 4, and then they get to play the number 9 team.
If you don't use those guidelines, you guys are Big Ten guys. You're a Nebraska guy, Ed's an Iowa guy, Brett's an SEC guy. So you would be comfortable because you can make an argument. Would you be comfortable with SEC teams taking all 4 spots?
I think that's a distinct possibility. I don't think it's going to happen this year.
Answer Chris's comment here. In all honesty, the SEC has deprived every other conference of talent. I don't know how fair it would be to judge other conferences on that.
Chris, that's an excellent point, and it's what I've been screaming about since I found out about the inequity, 20 years ago, that everybody should have the same academic standards.
No, 100%.
Because plain and simple, the SEC has much lower, and most of the schools have much lower academic standards,
and that's on purpose.
Big Ten teams, yes,
that's on purpose.
Yes,
I would say
that's the reason why a lot of coaches don't want to go to Notre Dame, because the academic standards are ridiculous. They're like Ivy League.
Yeah,
it's tough. It is.
That makes a complete inequity, and that's why I say, because of that, the Big 12 winner deserves that place. The ACC winner deserves that place. I mean, when you're not held to the same standard, if NCAA came out and said, listen, all schools,
make it right?
No, but what I'm saying is, if all schools had to play by the same rules, then I would agree with you. Hey, if it's 4 SEC teams, it's 4 SEC teams, but they don't have to all play by the same rules.
Did you guys see where we posted earlier this week on the page? Right now, how the playoffs would shake down. I think it's 2 out of the ACC, 3 or 4 out of the Big Ten, 3 out of the SEC, 2 out of the Big 12. And they had Notre Dame was one of the first teams out.
Yeah, Alabama was
Boise
out.
State was in. But right now it's pretty fair breakdown, and there's still so much football to be played. The SEC is just going to continue to beat each other up, and I don't foresee a 3-loss SEC team making it. But that's just maybe I'm wrong, you know.
And just to assume, I mean, heck, look at it. Vanderbilt beat Alabama. Is Vanderbilt better? Yeah, but I mean, so if Vanderbilt can beat Alabama, why couldn't BYU?
You think Vanderbilt's a better team? So you think they play 5 times that they're going to win?
But what I'm telling you is
with this new coach, as an Alabama fan, absolutely, we would lose 3 out of 5. We're poorly coached, no fundamentals,
but
on and on and on.
But what I'm telling you is, if Vanderbilt can beat Alabama, so can BYU, so can Miami, so can Clemson, so can name whatever Penn State. To just
guys,
assume,
I don't even think Alabama's going to be in the discussion at the end.
No, but I'm just using that as an example to say that what you've seen on the field by the SEC this year. Okay, Alabama went and beat Georgia. Georgia has not looked that dominant. Okay. And then Texas, Georgia gets beat by Alabama. Mississippi State hangs with them real well. And I don't think anybody thought Mississippi State was going to do that. And then Georgia turns around and slaps Texas around. So to just assume that, well, I mean, let's, the SEC is that much more dominant. I mean, Brett has said it on the show numerous times. The thing that Saban said, Alabama is no longer 2, 3, 4 deep in positions with 4 stars and 5 stars. Those guys have had to go other places, and those guys
had
are
26 transfer in all season. 26.
Yeah. So I mean, those guys are going to other places, and they're filtering to these other teams. I mean, to just assume that a BYU or a Penn State because they're 3rd in the Big Ten, or a BYU because they finished 2nd, to assume that, well, I mean, it's not fair because they really can't compete with them. And just to demean the ACC because they have 2 teams, I mean, I don't know if you can
I will say this, though, and we've talked about this too, and it's something that Chad, I mean, I'm not agreeing with either one of you, but look, I'm big into recruiting and the draft and all that. Go look at the last dozen drafts. There's by far more SEC players drafted by NFL teams than any other conference. I mean, it just is. Now, not all of them pan out, but none of them all pan out for any conference. The SEC is loaded with a lot of talent. I mean, my goodness, Texas A&M. I mean, there's just. I think we're all right now. I don't see why, if they were going to expand the playoffs, to be honest with you, why we didn't go to a 16 team, just like Feinbaum and some other analysts said. Division II and Division III been doing it for 30 years. How can they get it right and know what they're doing, but yet Division I can?
Yeah, and Division I cannot. And
right.
The thing that I think the way they have it right now in the current breakdown, there's 4 SEC teams, 3 Big Ten teams, 2 ACC, and 2 Big 12, and then Boise State was the last team. I really do not see a problem with that, because here's what's going to happen. The NCAA knows that. I mean, obviously there's more money in the SEC, but they also know that the last thing that they want to do is start alienating entire fan bases from the ACC, entire fan bases from the Big 12, and potentially some fan bases in the Big 10, because, well, I mean, even the Big 10 is going to start, because the Big 10 has always kind of had a chip on their shoulder, if you will, against the SEC, for the reason that Chad said. Look at the standards in the Big 10 compared to the SEC. And you are correct. The standards are the same in the Big 12 and the ACC compared to the SEC. They're all higher. So they draw more because the standards aren't as high. I mean, okay. But I think the NCAA also realizes that. And I think that by having these expanded playoff scenarios, you still have to give place at the table until things change. You still have to give place at the table, the ACC, the Big 12, and in this case, Boise State. Now, as a Boise State or I don't know, they've mentioned Liberty. They've mentioned some of the, do they deserve to be in the top 4? Probably not. But
Amanda says hello from the Jelly Roll concert.
Oh, she's enjoying the Jelly Roll concert tonight. I tell you what, we had a homecoming, and they did spoofs. The senior parents did spoofs on different performers and stuff. And we had a dad who put on all the fake tattoos and stuff and came out with hat backwards and all dressed up like Jelly Roll. It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Like, he nailed it. I'm like, man, if he walked through a crowd dressed just like he is, he might sign some autographs. He might sign some autographs.
So let's split and move to the side. We'll have Chad go through his updated Big Ten. You're going to have to go the other way, Chad.
No, now I'm over here.
Now you're over there.
Okay. So we got Oregon at 1. We got Penn State at 2. Ohio State at 3. Indiana and Illinois, they just keep defying the norms. To a new head coach in Indiana who doesn't care anything about what has been, and he's all about we're here right now. We're going to do this.
Indiana's dangerous.
Brett Bielema is just a heck of a coach. He is. And then we got Wisconsin. I hate putting them in there.
Wait, you skipped over Iowa.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Let's not forget the Hawkeyes.
For the first time, Chad, for the first time,
I'm
actually looking at your rankings, and I'm thinking you're being too nice to Iowa. I wouldn't have them that high.
How'd they do this weekend, Ed? I didn't watch the game, but how did they do? I didn't see it.
They pretty much got manhandled by the mighty Spartans of Michigan State.
Are they? They're not on this list. Where are they at?
No, they're not. That's why I was kind of curious as to why Iowa moved up in his rankings when they had such a terrible loss.
Yeah, it was like the 300 watching that game. What is when King Leonidas said, "This is Sparta"? You know?
Well, Ed, I'm just trying to make you feel a little better.
Yeah, he knows I had a pretty rough weekend all the way around. So.
Yeah. Whatever you did this weekend, you better do the opposite.
Yeah, that was my long distance hug for Ed.
So you're saying I'm going commando this weekend?
You go, Jolene. Get your sign. And then we got Wisconsin. Like I said, I don't like putting the piss throwers up there, but they're playing some decent football. Nebraska should not be this high. They just got crushed. They got owned. They got pimp slapped all over the field. It wasn't a game. Michigan's working their way back up. Washington, the little Golden Gophers, and USC stuck their nose and got into the Big Ten top 10.
With the exception of Oregon, the other teams coming in from the Pac-12, they are performing abysmal in the Big Ten. They are not making an impact whatsoever.
I think considering everything that Washington lost, to include the head coach, quarterbacks,
they can have him back,
wide receivers, everything. No. They said you bought it. You own it, man.
You got it.
No givesy backsies.
So what do you guys think? Number one, at this point in the season, it's almost unheard of to see Ohio State not only third in the Big Ten, and Chad's not the only one that's got them sitting at 3, but to have them sitting in the AP at usually they're a lot higher there too. But what do you guys think of Indiana? They just keep winning, man.
Man, I like their coach. I'm ready to send out a feeler to see if he's interested in coming to Alabama. He coached under Nick here for 4 years, and The man's got guts. I mean, when he did his introduction video or his interview, one of the things that he said, which has came out now, and I even posted it on our page, was, I win. Google me.
Somebody
Now that's you got to have a little bit of that in you.
Yeah, I was watching an interview with him, and somebody had just kept saying to him over and over again, "What makes you think you can win here at Indiana?" And he finally just got tired of it, and he says, "I win. Google it."
Yeah.
And I started laughing. No, the guy can play. He went and brought his quarterback in all of his skill position, like the running back, 2 of the wide receivers, I think a tight end, all came from James Madison with him, and they're all transitioning like champs.
Debbie's just trying to beat me when I'm down. She's a Georgia fan. Look, Alabama don't follow no rules down here, honey. We can take him back. I'll take him back. Somebody called me Saturday night and said, "You okay? You all right?" I said, "Oh yeah, I'm good." Just like I told Eric the week before, and they said, "Where are you at?" I said, "I'm headed to U-Haul." U-Haul? I said, "Yeah, I'm going to get some boxes for Coach DeBoer, and I'm headed to his house. Help him."
Well, and looking at Chad's list there, I think, anything below Indiana, I mean, those teams are dead in the water. They're playing for a bowl game. Or Illinois, Illinois.
Yeah.
Illinois might be close to there because, I don't know what their schedule looks like, but anything under Illinois, I know it's a top 12, but, they're pretty much dead in the water. I honestly thought you probably should have bumped Iowa down to 8 and moved Wisconsin, Nebraska. But at this point, it's irrelevant because those teams aren't going to the playoff.
Well, we'll find out something about Illinois this weekend because they go to Eugene to play Oregon. They got Minnesota, Michigan State, both at home. Then they go to Rutgers, my Cinderella team, who's I said would win 7 games and go to a bowl, and they still look like they're going to do that. And then they finish up at Northwestern.
So basically, they win next week, and Illinois is going to be sitting pretty good.
Yeah, they go to Eugene and beat Oregon. It's on.
It would be on. Chad, as you're looking at your top, 5 teams there, in your opinion, who do you believe has the toughest schedule remaining of those top 5 teams?
Let's pull it up here. Let's see. Oregon's got Illinois, Michigan, but Michigan is
not Michigan.
It's in Ann Arbor though.
Former South, that's for sure.
Yeah, they got to go to Camp Randall, and we'll see how that goes for them. Those fans throwing urine on all the Oregon Duck fans, and then they get Washington at home to finish up the season. I'm telling you, it's real, guys. They do that stuff. Indiana they have Washington at home. They go to Michigan State, and as Ed knows, don't underestimate those Spartans.
Right?
Don't underestimate them. Don't look past them.
They
got Michigan, Ohio State, and they got to go to Columbus. So that'll be pretty.
Is that their final? Is that their final game of the conference schedule?
No. Then they finish up
Michigan
with
and Ohio
Purdue
State
at home.
play.
Purdue. Okay, so it is their final game, but
well, they always play Purdue last. I think that's their traditional.
Very similar to Iowa and Nebraska.
Yeah. And then who'd we do? Oh, Penn State. Penn State's they're at Wisconsin. Then they got Ohio State at home. So that'll be a big one. And then they got it pretty easy the rest of the way. Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland.
So basically Oregon and Penn State have one game they have to win from here on out. They got to win them all, obviously. But they've got one huge game that if they don't look past everybody else and they get that W, with Ohio State losing to Oregon, if Penn State's able to beat Ohio State, Ohio State could be on the outside looking in.
Ohio State's got 2 big games, 3 because Michigan's always a game.
That's always a grinder.
They have Penn State, and they go to Penn State, and then they have Indiana at home, second to last game, and then they have Michigan at home. So they've probably got the toughest remaining schedule. I mean,
agree with that.
The Ohio State game was announced this week, the time, and the Penn State fans are not happy at all. They were expecting a night game there in Happy Valley. It's 12 noon.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
listen. Ohio State. Listen to who they beat.
Oh, they hadn't beat anybody.
Western Michigan, Marshall, Michigan State, and Iowa. They ain't played anybody.
Well, here's the deal. If Ohio State doesn't beat Indiana, doesn't beat Penn State, doesn't run the table, and they end up being a 2-loss team in the Big Ten,
It would be 3.
there is a chance if they have 2 losses, 3 losses, there's no guarantee that they make the 12 team.
3 losses would put them out of there. There's no way they'll take a 3-loss Big Ten team. No way. No way.
So clearly, Ohio State has the hardest schedule. Remaining,
Yeah.
which is good because
sure.
they haven't played anybody, so they got to
Right.
play somebody.
Yeah, right. I would agree with you. Ohio State definitely does. Oregon and Penn State have big games. Indiana, they've got one big game. So, yeah, I would say it's definitely Ohio State in that situation. So, I mean, Ohio State, like you said, they haven't really played anybody, and the one team they did play was Oregon, and it didn't work out so well for them. So, I mean, that really could put them in a bind. And the NCAA playoff committee, they want money. Ohio State would be better to have in there, but the way they've got it set up, I don't know.
Let's move right along to the SEC. Let me put up Brett's power rankings here.
Do we have to?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought you took Alabama off all the way, man. I did. I was like, he's not even going to come on there.
When was the last time you saw Alabama sitting that far down?
Better get used to it.
But we don't need to get used to it.
You're right. Well, hey, trust me. Like they say, when Alabama loses, the country wins. That's what I got to see all weekend long. So
see, that's not true.
Hey.
That's not true because I truly do not have any hatred toward the SEC at all. I mean, do they have inherent advantages? Yeah, but I don't have any hatred for them. I like watching the games. I mean, mine is a different because it's, we're so far away.
Talent.
Well, and we're so far away. I mean, the odds of me ever seeing a game, in Tuscaloosa or in, where, College Station, wherever it is, probably minimal. So, I mean, ours are more regional, I mean, ours are different. Like I would root for Alabama way before I would ever root for Kansas State or, I would root for Georgia way before I would root for Iowa, so, I mean, it's just different, so.
Well,
so when you say that, it's the South. The SEC country hates them.
Yeah, the only saving grace is I've got Auburn at 16, and that's rather accurate. And they've got a big battle with Kentucky this weekend. But Georgia, number 1, look, they lost to Bama, but they dominated the second half. They did struggle with Kentucky on the road. Kirby Smart is a master motivator, and I think they're Texas fans and my SEC group and every SEC group that I've seen, they were already just talking, national championship. We're going to come in here and we're going to look. They got a dose of SEC football Saturday night. They got manhandled on both lines of scrimmage. And, when we picked the game last week, I sit there and hesitate, and I thought Georgia, but as bad a year as I'm having, I'm like, yeah, but Georgia, look out for Georgia. Their quarterback is still turnover prone, but Kirby is Nick Saban 2.0. He learned from the best. He's a master motivator. LSU red hot. They're taking on Texas A&M this weekend. That's going to be a fun game at College Station. Texas still has a lot of talent. I really do think they got a good shot at making it to the SEC title game. Tennessee.
Hey, Brett, 1 second. Hold on. Jordan, how's it going, bud? Good to see you on here. Go ahead, Brett.
Anyway, Jordan says if Alabama wins out, they'll be in, and they should be. SEC football is different. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, if my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. And Jordan, I'm an Alabama fan. I live right here in Tuscaloosa, so I'm not being rude, or maybe I was crude, but Alabama has played horribly the last 3.5 games. And I'm not being critical. I'm just being honest. There's way too much talent on that roster and not hating on Tennessee. But right now, I take Texas A&M over Tennessee, Texas, LSU, Georgia, and possibly Ole Miss. I mean, Tennessee's a solid team, but they played the most undisciplined team in the conference last week, and I think Alabama has shown that repeatedly. I'm really interested to see how it's going to shake out, though, at the end of the season.
So, Brent, if you were a betting man, and after the first week of the season, LSU got beat and they looked pretty bad doing it, who would have thought that after the way they played in week one that they'd run the table since?
Well, you remember what I mentioned to you guys. I think since Brian Kelly's been at LSU, this is maybe his third, fourth year, he's lost every opener. I mean, every season, you go back every season, he has struggled the first couple of games. And then, man, it's strange. They're like watching a different team on both sides of the ball right now. Now, they might go to College Station, which is a very tough environment, and lay an egg against Texas A&M. But I think it's going to be a battle. But right now, I'd probably take LSU and a nail biter over Texas. But again, so many things can change. Missouri and Alabama, it's going to be in Alabama this weekend. It's homecoming. We're going to be flat as a pancake. I do look for a possible upset in that one. Florida's improved, but their remaining schedule is just brutal. And Oklahoma has no quarterback, no offense. Auburn's, they're a better team, but they are so turnover prone, and it's a roller coaster at their quarterback position. And Kentucky and Mississippi State are just having miserable seasons. And that's pretty much my SEC wrap up. Look for Hotty Toddy and Ole Miss to maybe win out. They still got some big games coming up.
So, Brett, question for you.
Georgia's clearly has the easiest schedule left.
Yeah.
So Brett, I got a question for you. If you had $1,000 today, okay, and we have a lot of SEC people that watch the show, a lot of comments, things like that. If you had $1,000 today, who are your, let's just say 4 right now? Who are your 4 that you believe are going to be the SEC representatives in the playoff in the 12 team? If you had to have a gun to your head and you had $1,000, you had to lay it down. Who are they?
As much as I want to say Texas A&M over Tennessee, Texas A&M's got a rough schedule. They've still got Texas. They've got LSU this weekend. Tennessee still got Georgia on the road. Yeah, I would take Georgia, LSU, Texas, and Texas A&M. Okay. I would drop Tennessee out.
Can't argue with that. The thing that scares me about Tennessee is how they can look on offense at times.
Right.
It's not that they don't have a talented roster or anything like that, but it's just they have shown the tendency to not look very good and to just kind of lose it a little bit. I think Texas learned from Georgia. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I know it was 30-15, but the thing that shocked me about the Georgia-Texas game was how inept Texas was on offense for long stretches of time.
Man,
defensively, I thought defensively, I think they picked Beck off twice. I mean, defensively, I didn't think they were that far off, but I mean, offensively, I could not believe how quiet they were for long stretches of time.
I'm telling you, other than Nick Saban, Georgia, Kirby Smart he's probably right now the best remaining coach when it comes to motivation. That defensive line Texas didn't stand a chance. And I know, we were talking privately, they need to put Archie and they need to do that. I won't say, hell, is Archie going to block those 4 or 5 guys that's coming every play?
Yeah, right.
Because they just grown man them, as I say. It was men against boys. And it took Texas. They got their feet under them finally in the second half and realized and a lot of other people mentioned that physicality in SEC on those lines of scrimmage is different than what it is in the ACC and Pac-12. Big Ten's very physical on those lines of scrimmage, and Texas they got a wake up call Saturday.
But don't you think that's where the SEC separates themselves from all the other conferences? You know, let's take in the past. Let's take Ohio State out of there. Okay, let's just assume. But outside of Ohio State, isn't that where the SEC at least the top teams? That's where they separate themselves from.
Yeah. It's the lines of scrimmage. I always go back to the Florida Ohio State national championship game, and that's really when the SEC went on our long run. I mean, those Ohio State offensive linemen never seen anything like that. You remember that? Tebow was the backup. Chris Leak was the quarterback. And they just overwhelmed them. I mean, it didn't matter how many blockers they kept in there. They had no answer for the physicality on both lines of scrimmage.
I don't know. The skill position players, the wide receivers in the SEC are insane.
Well, but what
the athleticism, the ball skills.
I agree, Chad, but I think the separation is a lot less in some of your skill positions as it is up front.
I agree.
What I'm saying is it's equal. So as much separation as there is from the lines in the rest of the conferences, I would say the same is true of the skill positions.
I would have to disagree with that.
I will say this, though. The SEC didn't really start spreading it out until probably about a half a dozen years ago. We still played a lot of smash mouth play action type ball up until here in recent years. But when you go look at the maps, man, like I said, I studied this recruiting, and you can tell where all the 4 and 5 stars are in each state. Well, you know, Louisiana's loaded. Georgia's loaded. Florida's loaded. Texas is loaded. I mean, they're all right here in our backyard, and most of them now they want to play in the SEC. They want to play in the bright lights. So a lot of them stay home, you know, and Alabama's done a fantastic job the last dozen years pulling a lot of talent from California.
Yeah, I would agree. But I still, I mean, I just respectfully disagree on the special, you know, on the wide receivers and things. I don't think there's as big a gap. I think you could argue there is a gap, but I think the biggest difference that I think makes the biggest difference is up front. I think your defensive and offensive lines is what really separates the SEC from the other conferences. Yeah. Now, being a big
Harbaugh's old school physical style of play was what saved him at Michigan because he played the physical Big Ten ball, but he got them so well coached and coached up that they were just so much better at than anybody else.
Right.
And although Alabama was more athletic than them on the field last year, and to me at times in certain positions it was kind of obvious, Jim coached the right style to beat Alabama. And I don't know if they cheated. I don't know. I'm not going there. But they knew what we were running before we ran it on a lot of plays. They were always in position. You got to give them credit. Like I said, that. But typically when we play, when the SEC and Big Ten are so, you know, with the old bowls, we'd usually play the Big Ten in 4, 5, 6 bowls. And physicality, we'd have a little bit of an edge. You could tell in a lot of bowl games. But some of our speed guys, I mean, our wide receivers and our punt returners, well, you could tell a lot of those Big Ten teams are like, you could see the look on some of the players' faces, like, holy, you know, like they don't see that, you know.
But that's always been the Big Ten. You know, I would agree with Chad. If Chad's comparing the SEC to the Big Ten, then I would agree with him. And he's a Big Ten guy, so maybe that's where he's coming from. I would agree with him.
But now Ohio State's got more 5-star wide receivers the last half dozen years than anybody.
Right. But I would
Alabama's
agree.
probably second.
You're saying the Big 12 has got wide receivers and backs that are equal to the SEC?
No. That I did not say equal.
Oh, okay.
I said the gap was less. The way the Big Ten sets himself up, and he said it with Jim Harbaugh. You know, it's power football. It's run. I mean,
Ohio State is the only Big Ten teams that compete.
Yes, but they're the outlier. I'm just saying. When I say Big Ten, I take the Ohio State out.
Every year, like right now, I think they're number one in recruiting. Go look at how many of those guys are wide receivers. They have 3 or 4 of the top 10 wide receivers every year. I don't know what they're paying them. I don't know how they've done it for so long, but I mean, it is constant.
Well, their track record of putting them in the league is what gets them there. Just like LSU. LSU's got the track record with wide receivers now, pumping them in the league.
Yeah. Just like cornerbacks at Florida, LSU, and Alabama now. There's so many cornerbacks from secondary guys from Alabama and LSU.
I mean, like you said, with Iowa and their tight ends, I mean, I guess we could say ISU and their running backs, David Montgomery, Breece Hall. I mean, they've got I don't know how Matt Campbell finds some of these guys, but I mean, you have your outlier coaches that are able to, Kirk Ferentz can find tight ends. They develop them.
He can find tight ends, but he can't find quarterbacks.
Oh man!
What was that? What was that?
50? What, is it 57? Hold on. Yeah, I know we posted it. We posted it to the Bottom Line Facebook page. But the most consecutive games without a 300
believe it or not, I felt bad, so I have not posted it yet.
Okay.
No,
I'll do it tonight.
But I
think it's worthy of being posted. Because
I do too. I mean, because
that you always, and I asked the same question this year, and that answered my question along with Chuck Long, and that's the fact that. What was it? 50-some consecutive games.
Yeah,
the quarterback of Iowa has not passed for 300 yards.
58.
Yeah, but see that's what Eric said going back to recruiting. That's why it's so tough on y'all year after year after year because Iowa's not known for the passing game. So you're struggling to get a good quarterback in. You're struggling to get good wide receivers in. It does make a difference. They're
going to come to Iowa if they're going to get 3 or 4 targets a game.
No,
they're not.
That's the problem, and that's what some of these teams run into. Is, I'm not a bash on Iowa. I'm just using them as an example. If I'm a good 3-star, because let's face it, a 4 or 5-star isn't going there probably anyway. But let's say I'm a good 3-star wide receiver, and I'm choosing between any Big 12 team. Let's just say the top 6 Big 12 team. Texas Tech on up, or actually Colorado on up, or Iowa. It's not even close.
And unless you're a punt and kick return specialist as well, because Iowa is known for some of those guys.
Right.
That's what's happened to Iowa is Iowa has a hell of a defensive coordinator. He puts a top 5 defense on the field practically every year.
Minus this year.
The problem is Coach Ferentz says, you know what? We got a hell of a defense. We got to play to our strength. So he goes ultra conservative on offense.
Yep.
Instead of developing,
so that they try to make 0 mistakes, and he relies on the defense to keep them in all their ball games. Well, if I'm a wide receiver and I'm going to sit out there and basically watch them run the ball up the middle,
and I got to block over and over and over.
Hey, here's one for you. I get to use my fake news.
Fake news, brother.
Michigan, if you're a receiver, at least under Harbaugh.
Who's going to throw him the ball? One of us 4 could probably be your starting quarterback right now.
Yeah, but at least with Harbaugh, I mean, let's face it. He had a game where he didn't even throw pass in the second half. You're not going to Michigan. I know it may be different now. I mean, Michigan, maybe they look better now, Mike. I don't know, but I'm just telling you, if I'm a 3-star, I'm not going to Michigan.
All I got to say to Mike is, quit sending your quarterbacks to Iowa, would you? That's
Now, wait. I can remember all the Hawkeye fans. Oh, we got McNamara. Oh, you guys watch out.
Yeah, I was one of those guys.
I wonder if Iowa's kind of like the Cleveland of college football. That's where quarterbacks go to die.
Oh, listen, I didn't want to take it that far, Ed. That was all Brett. His SEC arrogance just came through right there, bud. I don't know.
Oh, there you go, arrogance. we're back to the Mike Dubose and Mike Shula days, and most Alabama fans around here ain't willing to admit it yet. But I've seen this movie before.
Hey, Brett, in that spirit, I just want to let you know, if you need to, a couple seasons down the road when this spins out of control, call me. We'll talk through it. I'll tell you about my experience in the early 2000s after dominating the whole 90s. Then we just became an also-ran. I'll help you through that. I got experience.
Got a little
I mean,
experience in that.
I've experienced all kind of stuff at Alabama, and that's what I tell them. Let's just get rid of him now. I don't want to have to deal with this 3-4 years. Let's just go ahead and move on. And like in
Unreal.
6, 7 games, I said, I've seen all I need to see.
How bad has it got? How bad has it gotten in Michigan, Eric, for Mike to send this?
Huh. It's gotten real bad.
What does
He
that say
clearly.
about- I know that I've taken a lot of heat for Iowa this year. But
Return to sender.
This turns the bullseye directly on Michigan with this thing.
I mean, clearly Mike has not watched a single Hawkeye football game because he
You don't
is
want him
damaged
back.
goods, Mike. You don't want him back. Trust me when I tell you. Trust me when I tell you. Okay,
So,
we got to wrap this up because we have one. We'll call it hot topic, and we're going to spin it around to everybody. And that is your most disappointing team in college football today. And I'll kick it off. By far, in my opinion, my humble opinion, Florida State.
Humble?
Humble.
Mm.
In my humble opinion,
About that,
Florida State is – it's my turn. Mute his mic. In my humble opinion, Florida State is by far the most disappointing team. Here is a team who started out in the top 10, I believe as high as 7 maybe. Transfer quarterback from Oregon State. I'll butcher his name. I'm not even going to try it. They had a lot of high hopes for the season, and they look absolutely dysfunctional, lost on both sides of the ball. It started with Georgia Tech in Ireland, and it has not stopped. I cannot imagine being a Florida State Seminole fan with the way that their season, I mean, what are they, 1-6? I mean, holy buckets. That would be enough for me to be like, all right, I got to go find somebody else. To me, that's unacceptable. So Florida State definitely gets my nod for most disappointing team in college football. Chad, who you got?
I got the University of Southern California Trojans. I tell you what, they're so bad, it's like somebody picked up their pack and punched a bunch of holes in it with a needle. They are terrible. I mean, they went. Didn't they go to Maryland and get beat by Maryland?
Yeah, 29-28.
Oh,
that's not good.
And he had the nerve to say we're within a few minutes of being undefeated. I'm like, how do you defend that? You're 3-4.
I heard that same press conference,
terrible.
And they asked him that question. He goes, "Listen, the games we've lost have been by like a total of I don't know how many points. It's single digits." But I'm like,
"Oh, okay,
no." But
welcome to Nebraska.
My response was this: "But you're USC. You don't go into Maryland and lose 29-20. I don't. How do you defend a 1-point loss to Maryland? Like, So what he was saying, I know he was trying to spin it and he was trying to make it look better, but Lincoln Riley has some issues there. I don't know if he thought he was closer to what he was trying to accomplish or closer to Big Ten play or whatever, but I don't consider Maryland to be like, your traditional Big Ten team. Like, line up across from me, we're going to smash them out. I don't think anybody does. But he lost to Maryland. I mean,
they lost to a terrible Michigan team. Let's face it, Michigan's bad.
Yeah.
They lost to Minnesota. They lost to Penn State. Okay. And they lost to Maryland.
Yeah.
Well, but you can also throw. I mean, you can put USC
Rutgers,
and Washington in the same bucket because you look at the Pac-12 and you look at USC and Washington. The minute you heard those teams were going to the Big Ten, it's like, whoa, that's going to add a lot to the Big Ten. And I think both teams have come up pretty small for their first year in the Big Ten.
See, I would disagree with that a little bit.
What if my Rutgers Scarlet Knights roll into the Coliseum and beat them this week?
At this point, that would be just good theater. But The only reason I disagree with you, Ed, is I thought because of how much Washington lost, I didn't know where Washington kind of sat. My thought was Oregon and USC were going to be those two teams out of the Pac-12 for sure.
Yeah.
That crossed over and made some noise. I didn't know where Washington was at because, they lose their coach, they lose offensive coordinator. They lost a lot. But, Oregon clearly has been fine. I did not anticipate USC looking this bad. I really did not. Washington was a dice roll to me because, again, they lost so much, but USC.
They lost so much.
Yeah.
Out of all their losses, the best game they played was against Penn State. That's probably the game they should not have lost.
Yeah, 100%. Who you got, Brett?
I'll bet I can guess yours, Brett.
Freaking Bama. And hold on a second. Hold on a second. Oh, they've only lost two games. No. We lost to Vanderbilt in Nashville. Our whole second half against Georgia, they threw us up and down the field because you know what? They figured out, hey, if we keep Milroe in the pocket and don't let him use his legs, he's not very accurate with the football. They almost won that game, which Alabama almost lost. South Carolina game after the Vanderbilt game, we barely win, and South Carolina kicked an onside kick and recovered that. We lead the SEC in penalties. We lead the SEC in, excuse my language, stupid shit. It's just, and then Tennessee did everything but say, here, beat us, please beat us. And yeah, a couple calls didn't go our way, but we've still got LSU, we've still got Missouri, we've got Auburn. It's got to be Alabama for me. We're loaded up and down, both sides of the ball. I don't know whether we lose 3 or 4 games this year. I know it's not on the level of a USC or someone like that, but our new coach got a rude awakening this weekend. What's going on the last 3.5 games here is not acceptable.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the show, for those of you in the Tuscaloosa area, we are going to be putting Brett's number up there so you guys can do wellness checks for us periodically just to make sure that Brett is going to be okay. Ed, what do you got? Oop, that way.
So we're going to get to the picks.
Oh, don't you have a team, Ed?
Well, I told you USC and Washington I was disappointed in, but my third team was Alabama. So between all of us, you pretty much covered them. But USC, I don't know that if Riley isn't able to turn it around next year,
does he make it?
Does he survive another year? Because they have really laid some eggs.
He's getting butchered on social media, and one of the posts I wanted to post it, and I'm like, this probably touched somebody because it's 2 blue blood programs. But how does one guy ruin 2 blue bloods basically at the same time? He ruined Oklahoma and left in the middle of the night, and now he's ruining USC. Like, that's pretty talented,
Hey, Bears fans, we're finding out just how important Caleb Williams was to USC, though, aren't we?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. What's our pick for college, Ed?
And Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Let's get to the picks. So, before we get started, the top dog changes hands after 1 week of yours truly. I pissed it down my leg. So this big dog goes to Chad Aussie Dropkick Coyle.
For now.
Give it to the fat boy.
He's leading at 50 and 32, but I am only 1 game behind. Eric's 2 games behind.
Yeah, I can't believe football Jesus is 2 games behind me. That makes no sense.
We're only halfway through the season.
Brett,
you're a football Svengali. I don't understand it.
Brett would probably own that trophy if he,
The Chiefs.
Yeah,
He-
keep
he-
picking the
he-
Chiefs,
he-
bud, or
He
against
went
them.
against the Chiefs every week.
All right, game number 1.
Game number 1 is number 12, Notre Dame, 6-1, going to Navy, where Navy is ranked 24th, is sitting at 6-0. Notre Dame is 12.5-point favorites. Is there an upset in the making? What do you think, Brett?
Man, these triple option teams give a lot of teams trouble. You're not used to defending it, and if you look at their last 10 matchups, Navy's won one. They've fought with them a couple games. This quarterback at Navy runs that offense perfectly. If you're putting money on it, I would definitely take Navy plus the 12.5, probably buy the half, but I've got to take Notre Dame straight up in a close one.
So we've got John taking Notre Dame, Henry taking Navy. We got
Who you
a
got,
vote
Chad?
in there for Navy and Navy. Oh boy, we got
Who you got, Chad?
upsets in the making here.
Give me the midshipman.
Wow.
Brett's taking Notre Dame, and
Pick opposite
Chad's
Brett.
going with Navy. Eric?
I'm with Brett. If we were doing the point spread, I would definitely take Navy. This is not going to be a 12.5 game. And I want Navy to win, but
Yeah.
I think in the end, Notre Dame is probably going to win. I'll take Notre Dame.
Yeah, I'm going with Notre Dame too. I just think that Navy's definitely having a great season, but there's something to be said for they're just not used to games of this caliber that have this much on the line.
They play it every year.
in their big games. So
They play Notre Dame every year.
I'm going with Notre Dame. So the next game. Do you got that?
Oh, yep, I got it right here.
We got number 8, LSU at 6-1. Traveling to College Station, where number 14 Texas A&M is 2.5-point favorites, also at 6-1. LSU has obviously riding the hot hand, losing their initial game of the season, but they've ran the table since. So this is a Saturday night primetime game. I don't know. ABC's got hellacious contract this year because it seems like every big game there is
Lots of big
ABC.
games.
Always ABC. So John's taking Texas A&M, and I'm going with them. I'm also going Texas A&M. Eric?
That's I always look at the odds. Vegas is very rarely wrong. They have not given Texas A&M the traditional 3 points at home. And I think LSU is riding the hot hand now, and I think they understand how big these games are for them to stay toward the top of the SEC to make the playoff. Because I think if they lose this game, they may lose out on their shot. So I'm going LSU.
Give me them Aggies.
Brett?
Me and Ed talked about this one, I think last night or the night before. Anybody watching, if you guys remember, this is a game that changed the overtime rules in college football. It was a classic. You need to check it out. 7 overtime game. It was unbelievable.
It was 9, I believe.
Was it? It was
Wasn't
a
it 9? I think it was 9.
blast. And the fans all season were raising hell with the NCAA online because they changed the rules because of this. So they said it was dangerous for the players and it needed to never happen again, all that. I'm going to take LSU in a very close one. When these two teams match up, man, it can get wild and woolly.
Oh, no.
So, yep, give me LSU. Dun, 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 dun,
I
dun.
just lost the game in the standings.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay, the last game we're
college.
going to pick. It wasn't a real stellar weekend for college games. So our final game of the week, number 3. Oh, before we do the last game, Ken, Marty, Henry, John, it's a clean sweep for Texas A&M.
They're smart. They're going against me. Eric's not smart.
Well, I picked before you.
KJ Disciple says, "Go Tigers."
Give me a heads up next time.
Last game for college, number 3 Penn State. It's 6-0 or 6.5-point favorites heading into Wisconsin.
Penn State.
Wisconsin is 5-2. That's just a couple channels away from ABC on NBC. So who wants to go first on that
Penn
game?
State. Penn State. Penn State. They gotta have it.
Wisconsin, Camp Randall's a tough place to play, but give me the Nittany Lions.
Oh, I thought you were going Wisconsin. I was like, whoa. No. Bold move, Cotton.
No.
Yeah, who does Penn State got the following week?
Oh,
Penn State, they don't have Ohio State coming up, do they?
let's see.
Who's next week's game?
Just a second. Looking it up. They got Ohio State coming up after Wisconsin.
Exactly. Give me Wisconsin.
Oh, thank you. Woo! I thought he was going to pick Penn State.
I did too.
So we got Marty, Henry, John, all taking Penn State.
How about you, Ed?
Oh,
Who you
I'm
taking in?
thinking. I got Penn State. I got
All
Penn
right.
State.
All
I got
right.
Penn State.
That wraps up the college side of it. But on the
That
other
wraps up
side,
the college side of it.
Thanks,
so
Brett.
we're gonna take a
I got
break,
nervous.
and when we come back, we're diving headfirst into the NFL. We got a lot of games to pick.
we got Ed's power rankings, and then we got the
We
NFC
got
North
power
on tap.
rankings. We've got hot topics. How are we going to get this all in by 10? I don't know. But we will be right back.
And that's the bottom line. You want a war? You're going to get one.
The cream will rise to the top. Oh, yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
And we are back for hour number 2. Time to talk some NFL. Everybody part to see there, because here comes the only power ranking that makes sense. NFL Week 8. We had 6 of the top 8 teams from last week won their games. So I had a little bit of shuffling go on. Minnesota lost a heartbreaker to Detroit because they forgot that a first down or two at the end of the game would have sealed the deal on that one. So I had them dropping from 2 to 4. Baltimore, steady climb. They won their 5th game in a row. They're looking pretty tough. The 1-2 punch of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry is pretty formidable, and I find it increasingly entertaining that they continue to go back to Jerry Jones and go back to Jerry Jones and go back to Jerry Jones with the Derrick Henry questions. And he just continues to say that, yeah, but we didn't have the right kind of team for Derrick Henry. And, oh, yeah, but we didn't have the money to sign Derrick Henry. And
I'm so thankful they didn't.
He comes up with every excuse in the book, but he came out today or yesterday and said that basically said his team wasn't as talented as Baltimore. So to think that Derrick Henry would have done that same thing for Dallas probably isn't an accurate statement.
He's not lying.
Well, he's not lying, but that sends a real nice message to your team too.
Right.
So I dropped Minnesota.
Do you think Derrick Henry means that big of a difference in their season? Do you think their records drastically different if they have Derrick Henry?
No,
because
both lines of scrimmage for Dallas is their problem. Their offensive and defensive lines, they're just getting manhandled.
Yeah,
I don't think
Dallas needed to make a lot of moves in the offseason to shore up a lot of things.
Yeah,
and they did absolutely nothing. So
yeah, that was my point. I mean, they can harp on him and get on him, but I mean, they signed Derrick Henry. It doesn't make a difference. Maybe they win one game more, maybe 2.
But isn't Dallas way over the cap space? Am I right?
I don't know that they're over the cap space. They're nothing like Buffalo was.
It's a hard cap.
I think Buffalo was like $45 million over at the end of last season. So Buffalo, I can see why they did what they did as far as letting their big name talent go and not really signing anybody during the offseason because they just didn't have the cap space to do it.
Right.
But so I got Minnesota dropping from 2 to 4, but I got them staying ahead of Green Bay and Houston. I mean, they beat both those teams, so it's kind of hard to argue that they shouldn't be above them. Washington, now we see what kind of team Washington is without Daniel. Chicago's hitting them at a good time. Do I think that Chicago really deserves to be a number 9?
I was surprised.
No. I would say no, and I had the top 8 down for probably a couple hours before I completed the rest of it because I just kept looking at it, thinking Chicago doesn't deserve to be that high. But then you look at the teams below them; none of them have staked a claim on taking their place. Philadelphia. I didn't even have them in the top 16 a couple weeks ago, and they've made a steady climb. Pittsburgh, we'll see. Russell Wilson had a horrible first half and came out and balled the second half. But, is that something he's going to be able to sustain? I don't know. Buffalo's got a big test. What they say about crossing time zones. Buffalo Bills aren't a road team to begin with.
No.
Buffalo's got to go clear to Seattle. They got to go 3 time zones to play that game. As you'll see in my picks later, I don't think this is going to be a good week for Buffalo. Seattle's starting to get healthy. They got one of their good defensive backs back this week. So I have Chicago at number 9, Philadelphia 10, Pittsburgh 11. San Francisco, holy cow. San Francisco is so hard to judge.
They're a mash unit right now.
They're just every week they got someone else that's hurt. But about the time you count them out, they turn around, they win a big game. So it's like, do they deserve to be at 12 at 3-4? Probably not. But the teams below them, Seattle, lost the game. I mean, they never should have lost. Atlanta got steamrolled, and it's like, what the hell was that all of? Seattle goes in and just lays the wood to Atlanta, and it's like,
After losing 3 straight games.
and so do any of those three, San Francisco, Seattle, Atlanta, do they deserve to be in the top 10? No. Tampa Bay, they're a mash unit now. Their top 2 receivers are gone. One's for the season, another one's out till week 10, at least. He's got pretty much the same injury that Justin Jefferson had last year. Justin Jefferson I think he was on the pine for a good 6 to 8 weeks. So Tampa Bay is in trouble. Denver, they're a 16 team, but they're a 16 team with really not much pizzazz. So, as you look at Chicago being a number 9, there's an argument to be made. Well, where would you put them? What teams below them would go above them?
Well,
I would have Philadelphia and Pittsburgh ahead of them, but that's just me.
Well, here's the deal. They might be the number 9 team now. Okay. But they have the strongest strength of schedule remaining in the NFL. So just by that, Chicago is going to lose some games. I mean, unless Caleb Williams,
you're at Detroit, at Minnesota, at Green Bay,
at San Francisco,
play at the second half of the season,
at San Francisco. I mean, we have the Commanders this week. We also play. I don't know if the Seattle game, other than the division, we've got Washington, Arizona, and Seattle, I believe. But then it's all 6 division games in the back half of the season. Well, as we'll discuss the NFC North, that's not going to be an easy task. So, I mean, yeah, Chicago's a good story now, but,
Brock makes a good point here, as it concerns Derrick Henry. What's Baltimore going to do? Is Baltimore going to ride him like a horse the whole season, or are they going to ease him into the playoffs? Because face it, the last couple times Derrick Henry has made the playoffs, he's been so battered and beaten by the end of the regular season that he was a shell of his former self in the playoff game. So it's going to be interesting to see how smart Baltimore is with conserving him.
I'm going to tell you right now, I know Kansas City's up there. You have Kansas City up there because they're 6-0. Okay. I have no problem with that. Detroit, no problem there. I'm telling you right now, the most dangerous team on that left side is Baltimore right now. They can score. The only question mark I have about Baltimore, I never thought I would say this, is defensively, I don't know what's going on in Baltimore. Normally that is like
they're not the normal Baltimore team.
Yeah, that is like a lock. Baltimore's defense is going to be good. What's Lamar going to be able to do? Now, Lamar in that offense, they are just outpacing guys. And right now, the way they're playing, everything's clicking on the offensive side. They may not need a defense to carry them like they have.
Well, Baltimore's number 1 against the rush, but they don't have that Ed Reed sitting back there at safety, laying the wood to anybody. So, Brock, Brett, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to Brock here. He says, Brett Tierce, the only reason your love is in Philly because of Jalen.
Man, Philadelphia is probably the second or third least favorite team. I cannot stand that fan base. They are notorious. I wish Philadelphia would quit drafting my Bama boys. We've got Dickerson there. We've got Devontae Smith. We've got Jalen. And I'll still say this. I still think their roster is probably the most loaded, top 2 or 3, if not the most loaded. But I still don't think their coach is going to be around at the end of the season. And to touch on something Eric was probably fixing to mention, if they played today, and and I know I'm not necessarily a Kansas City fan, I would take Detroit over Baltimore against Kansas City right now. Don't mean that's the way it's going, but the way the teams are playing, I would take those two over Kansas City.
I would 100% agree with you.
That side by side of the Eagles coach when he first got hired to now.
Yeah.
Oh, that you sent us?
Yeah.
Oh my word. He looks like a president after 4 years.
I know. I was thinking the same. He reminds me of a president.
Yeah.
And he's got that 1,000-yard stare, like he's seen all his buddies killed in war, and
yeah, like is this over yet? Is this over?
So a couple of college updates.
7 months.
Couple college updates, quick. Henry says Liberty just lost for the first time this year. And then we got Amanda with the Jelly Roll update. In honor of college football, Jelly Roll sang "That's How I Get By" and sang it to perfection. So,
but yeah, I mean, like I said, when I look at the power rankings, I don't. You know, it'll be interesting to see. I think Washington's a good team. I know Mariota. It sounds like, at least at this point, Mariota's quarterbacking this weekend. You know, the Bears' defense is good. They're definitely better with Daniels in there. You know, so whatever happens in this game, I just think Chicago's schedule is just so difficult down the road here that, you know, I just want them to play well, you know, but I think Washington, they're going to be a dangerous team. And I do think, listen, do I think Chicago is going to win the North? No. But I do believe that Chicago is a team you're going to have to show up and beat. You know, you're not just going to walk on the field. They're not going to walk on the field with Detroit and go, "Oh, you guys are really good. You win."
We're definitely an improving team. I'm with Chad on this. I think 8-9. I think it's a heck of a win for this season if we go 9-8. Because we know, because we follow the team and we love the team, we're a couple linemen on each side of the ball away from a lot of potential, but we don't have them yet. So, and the North is just so loaded.
Yeah.
You guys did remember what I said before the season. My only hiccup on Daniels and my only worry for him was they needed to put about 20, 25 LBs on him because he was thin, and they brought that up when it was found out that he had hurt his ribs. He still, I'm surprised they didn't try to pack more weight on him before the season.
Well,
I was surprised. I was surprised at how well Mariota played. I mean, it took him a series or two, and then all of a sudden he was just like, "Screw it," and he just started. He threw some decent balls, and guys were able to make some catches and made some plays. And
they beat the battered Carolina.
Bring that together.
Yeah. Let's remember that's Carolina we're talking about here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
but still,
I mean,
so
Carolina
he couldn't do that. He couldn't do that when he was a starter.
I'm sure that owner in the next week or two will be throwing drinks on fans again before long in Carolina.
Yeah.
But as we say, the can't afford for him a moment in time. So at this point, I mean, there's some rosters like Tampa Bay out there that you never in a million years put Tampa Bay above Chicago at this point in time with with basically losing their wide receiving core.
They're after Cup. They're one of the big names after Cup.
Yeah, but Godwin's out. You know, he's out for the year.
Evans is supposed to be back. I think they got a bye week 11 is what I heard. He's supposed to be back week 12. That might be pushing it. We knew before the game started he didn't need to be out there. I was shocked that they put him out there.
I couldn't believe it either.
Yeah.
All because he wanted that 100th touchdown. It's like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
I agree.
And then he got it and limped off the field, and then he went back in. I was like, oh, okay. That's the way they're going to do this. This is stupid.
I mean,
so, Eric.
Yep.
Let's get into some hot topics.
All right. Hot topic number 1. And it is a biggie. The best division in football, the NFC North. And I will start it off like this. I will say that I am going to take Chicago out of the mix. Again, I mentioned how tough their schedule is down the road. Caleb still needs to keep improving. That's what I want to see. I want to see improvement. I want to see him move forward. So I'm going to just say this isn't our year to really, I think next year, even the year after that, is the big jump. If we can get the offensive line secured, if we can add another defensive lineman or two, then I will be in a lot better position to say that Chicago can make noise in the North. But the North is so stacked that, I think Chad and Brett would agree that, Chicago is just not ready for that kind of prime time yet. Will we be? I believe we will be. And I believe the North will be even stronger when the Bears are better. But we've got some work to do yet. And I think we know the defense is good. Coach Eberflus has got his side of the ball correct. And I think Waldron is getting that side of the ball correct. At the beginning of the year, I was like Brett. I got a U-Haul truck and some boxes. I'm going to back it up there and we're going to this crap pack. But I think maybe, and I could be wrong, I think maybe at the beginning of the year, he maybe underestimated what our potential was initially, what Caleb could handle initially. But I think more and more when you see how the offenses operate and the reads, I mean, they pointed it out on your national media where, you're watching Caleb's eyes in plays. You can see him hitting his different looks, and he's like, for a young quarterback, that is important. So when he can keep doing those things and keep getting better and better and better, and the offense can get more geared as to what he's capable of doing, that's going to make all the difference. Then his talents are really going to show. So seeing the things that I've seen from Caleb early on, in my opinion, and Chad may disagree, but in my opinion, I think he's already head and shoulders above in development where Justin Fields was even in year 2. I mean, I very rarely did I see Justin Fields' eyes go here to here.
Well,
to here.
to me, that's just an unfair comparison. But because we all know, don't we all agree that Caleb's ceiling is so much higher than Justin's was, though?
I agree.
I mean, Caleb was anointed basically the next thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you had a guy like Daniels, and obviously the Bears didn't even entertain it.
Right.
Didn't even entertain it.
Right.
So they felt strong,
But that's what I'm talking about. Because of that comparison, you're already seeing those things in game 3, 4, and 5 of the year that you didn't see in Justin's game 16, 17, 18.
I think the lines, the offensive line is fine. They're better now than what they were the first couple games.
I agree.
But I do see that, the game speeds up, and these guys talk about it. All these ex-players, Romo and Brady, all these announcers now, they talk about how fast the game moves, compared to the college level. And let's face it, he was against Pac-12 and Big 12 defenses. I'm not hating on him, but I figured it would take him a little time you got to speed it up. You got to speed it up, and that's been the thing that I'm really excited about. Is it looks like he's already slowed it down somewhat. You know what I mean? Like he's getting his feet under him already. We'll see.
Yeah.
All right.
Chad,
Well,
what do
let's
you think
talk
about
about the 3. Well, I think they're improving. They're getting better. If they win, like I said at the beginning of the season, I'm still saying it. If they win 8 games, that's great. That's my expectation. My expectation was not to make the playoffs. My expectation was not to win the North. Those are ridiculous expectations to put on that team and that young football player at the quarterback position. It's too much.
Correct.
But let's talk about. So we got Detroit, Minnesota, and the Packers. Who you got? Who's coming out on top? Who's going to be the king of the hill at the end of the season?
Ed, who you got?
I would have said if Minnesota would have pulled that game out at home Sunday, I would have thought Minnesota would have a fighting chance to win the division. But I think that the North Division playing each other home and away is going to be a bloodbath this year. And I think dropping a game at home is going to be a lot to overcome. So I look at Detroit probably is the clear-cut number, not only the division winner, but I look at them as the number 1 seed in the playoffs. So I think the more pressing question is, does both Green Bay and Minnesota make the playoffs, or just one or the other? At this point, I would like to say that they're both going to make the playoffs, so you'd have 3 of the 4 in the division making it. But I think tomorrow night's going to be a huge game, because if they drop 2 games in 4 days, that could be the start of a bad run. So I'm worried about tomorrow night's game, so we'll see. But I think Detroit's clear-cut above the rest of the division, even though all 4 teams have a pretty damn good record right now.
I think what Detroit did, and I know Detroit has the ability to do some things that other teams do not, but Detroit put together 4 straight touchdown drives against Minnesota's defense. To me, that would be the most alarming stat of the weekend if I was in the NFC North, is how is Detroit able to do that against that defense?
On the road.
And I know on the road. And if I was a Minnesota Viking fan, and Ed can speak to this, that would be probably the most, because if I would have said, Ed, at the beginning of the game, you guys are going to score 29 points, what would you have said to me?
We got a fighting chance to win this ball game.
I would have said you're going to win the ball game because your defense is not giving up more than 29 points.
The defense, what really shocked me was gave up 21 points in the second quarter and made no – I mean, to me, it looked like they made no adjustments. They had no answer in that second quarter. I mean, obviously they went in at halftime, and the second half was totally different. But why did it take halftime to make the adjustments that you should have been making? And then, then to say it was a perfect storm in the second quarter. Not only does your defense give them 3 straight touchdowns, but then your offense become inept in the second quarter when you needed to move the ball and give your defense a chance to make those adjustments. There's an argument to be made. The adjustments weren't made in the second quarter because they didn't have any time to make any adjustments.
Right.
I mean, they basically spent the whole second quarter on the field as a defense. So they definitely were playing on their heels.
And so
next to Eric's good point of the 4 straight touchdown drive, they lose Hutchinson, maybe the best pass rusher in the game or close to it, and they still managed to get 4 sacks.
Well, there's still rumors that they're in talks with Crosby. Crosby wants to stay in Las Vegas, but the rumor is, from what I keep hearing and seeing all over social media, is that it's still a possibility between now and the trade deadline, and that would be
the rumors.
big.
The Bears are pressing for him too, so I don't know.
But you want to talk about
that position yet, though? I mean, are we?
Yeah.
Don't you?
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's the rumors that the Bears are serious about trying to acquire.
How old is Crosby?
28.
Yeah, 28, I believe. But I agree with Chad, and if Chad's right, if the Bears pursue Crosby, do you know what it tells me about the Bears? They truly believe that they think they can win.
Yep.
Yeah.
If they bring Crosby in,
I think we all agree that we're not there yet. But promising signs. I don't. We're not there yet.
But signing Crosby tells me that they believe they are, and I mean, okay, let's roll. But I mean that if they sign Crosby, I'm thinking to myself, wow. I mean, the Bears.
I'm worried about what we'd be giving up.
Well,
the other rumor is they're going after Myles Garrett, and so Myles is a little younger. I think he's 26. I think he's 26.
No, Myles Garrett's. Somebody look that up.
So I'm looking it up. So Max is 27. He just turned 27.
I remember Myles Garrett from Texas A&M. He's always been a phenom. He's got a little age on him.
Well, his problem is all the injuries. He's had so many injuries.
He's 29.
Myles is older.
I actually thought he was a little older than that.
No, 29.
Man, I remember him coming in as a freshman at Texas A&M. I mean, that dude's built like Superman.
But if the Bears make one of those two moves, then they believe they can win. That's what I believe.
Who would you rather have? Crosby or
Crosby?
Miles Garrett's got more upside, but Crosby has a motor that's unmatched.
Yeah, and
I would rather have Crosby because Garrett just has a lot of health issues.
Yeah,
he always seems to be getting hurt.
And plus, we already have Sweat on the other side. Can you imagine a Crosby Sweat combination? We don't want to talk about it because it's just rumors. But speaking of other rumors, Ed, speaking of other rumors in the NFL that has been coming across my feed all day long, Stafford to Minnesota?
What?
Could it possibly be true?
What? Where Tommy Kramer's number?
Whoa!
Six-pack Tommy?
Things as they currently stand right now, if Sam frickin' Darnold was to go down, we would be, you just will write us out of the playoffs because we have no backup. Mullen is not. Mullen just isn't.
No. You do have a backup. I just signed my contract before I came on the show. You've got a backup.
So it's in their best interest to sign a quality backup. To me, I just don't.
You're going to bring him in to be the backup?
I'm saying, but either way you go, you're going to have a quality backup. Darnold's going to be a quality backup if Stafford comes in and becomes a starter. But the thing is, it makes perfect sense because, of course, Connell was the offensive coordinator for McVay when Stafford was there. So, I mean, he already knows a lot of the offensive lingo, so he would be effective from the get-go. So it makes perfect sense. I just can't believe that Coach McVay would get rid of Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford. That's almost like saying you're going into a total rebuild.
Yeah, they are.
That is what you're saying.
Does Coach McVay want to be a part of a rebuild?
Yeah.
What's crazy about that?
Back this year.
What's crazy about that is there were a lot of pundits that believed that the Rams were going to win that division. And, of course, all the injuries happen and things like that. How can you go from being a favorite by some to win the division to in 6 games, we're rebuilding? Because
you lost your 2 number 1 and 1A wide receivers.
Right.
So, I mean, I can see why they're considering doing it. But what I don't understand is to have, any given week, Matthew Stafford's a top 5 quarterback.
Right.
And so when you look at that, it just floors me that teams will let players go. DeAndre Hopkins, who's obviously his best games are behind him, but he goes for a 5 with the possibility of a 4, depending on how things go. And they talk about these players that are traded away for a 5th, for a 6th. And you guys know as well as I do, by the time you get to the 5th and 6th round in a draft, they're throwing spit wads at the wall to see what sticks.
Yeah.
And so how can you get rid of blue chip players for really nothing? I know some of them do it for salary cap dump. I realize that. But I just don't.
Get rid of old players.
I don't see it.
You would think that Hopkins would have generated maybe a little bit higher than that. I mean, especially since you could understand how desperate Kansas City is. Here's the deal. I think the Hopkins move, I believe that they were going to get one of them, whether it be Adams, Cooper, or Hopkins. Kansas City is desperate, and I'll tell you why they're desperate. I think that they are seeing Baltimore. They're paying attention to what Detroit's doing. I know they're not in the AFC, but they're paying attention. And I think they know that currently they are behind those 2 teams. That's what I believe. And so they knew they had to go out and get one of these guys. I think Adams was always ticketed to the Jets. Cooper could have just as easily wound up in Kansas City, and then I think you would have saw Hopkins go to Buffalo, but it was reversed. But do we believe that, I don't know how Hopkins is, but he's got some tread, he's got some tread left on the tires. That tread's getting worn. Is he going to put them over the top?
Yeah, but do you really need him on a week in, week out basis?
No.
To put you over the top? You're looking at a guy that if he gives them down the stretch, the playoffs, if he can give them 5 big plays.
Yep.
They were talking about that earlier today on Sports Talk, about that very thing. You don't need him to come in and get you 150 yards receiving every week.
Right.
It's kind of like, Travis Kelce last year totally disappeared during the regular season. But when the playoffs come around and you needed the big plays, there he was.
Yeah.
So does Hopkins have enough fuel in the tank to give them those big plays they need to get them over the top? If he can, then a 5th round pick or a 4th round pick is
completely
food.
Worth it. But
the other rumor about Cooper Kupp is not only are they looking to move him, but they're also willing to pay most of his 2024 salary.
Right. Which shocks me.
That's I mean, they're 2-4. I mean, they're finally, I think they're looking to try and get back some draft capital. And I think McVay and their thinking is, okay, all these teams are able to turn it around really quick. It doesn't take 5 years to rebuild. We can rebuild really quick. We can add some pieces, draft some guys. I don't know. Do they think Stetson Bennett is the future? I don't know. But sure as heck isn't Jimmy Garoppolo. But at least they have the rest of the season to let Stetson Bennett play and see what he could do.
Tell you what, if Stafford's not anything that's going to materialize, I'd like to see them turn their draft capital towards someone like Dexter Lawrence with the Giants. I think a big D tackle to be right in the middle of that line, the way Flores has got those boys flying around. I think, but the Giants got to be willing to move him too. He's only 26.
Right.
He's 26 years old. So anyway, before you go to your next hot topic, Eric, we got a fan here that wants us to revisit another hot topic that we talked about before. Tua retire or risk it for the team in Miami. He basically come out beginning of the week and said he has no intentions of retiring. He didn't really talk to anybody. He didn't really get any advice from anybody. It was basically a conversation he had between him and his wife, and that wasn't even much of a conversation. He says, I'm a football player. That's what I do, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. So what do you guys think? Is he being –
Well, this is the problem, and I know he came out and said when he does return, he's not going to wear the Guardian cap either. And I thought to myself, this is the issue. It's players like Tua. This is the issue that I have that they bring up consistently all the time about, well, all these head injuries and the things that NFL players are suffering later in life. Well, I know Tua said this. but you think that isn't the attitude of every single one of them?
Every single athlete that plays professional sports has that.
Yeah. So
that's all they know. That's all they've ever known.
Yes. And so I get, while you see some of these players and when they're in their 50s and 60s, Jim McMahon has talked about it. Dave Duerson, part of the 85 Bears, killed himself, and they believe it was the effects of all the hits that he took. But I'm like, wow. It's kind of what they're signing up for. Like, it's what they're signing up for. And the attitude that they have is, we don't care. Like, this is football. I mean, they may care when they're 60, but when they were in their playing years, they didn't care.
Well, see, keep in mind, though, back when Dave Duerson played and all that, we didn't know what we know now. Tua's very intelligent, and he's a good kid, and I'm rooting for him because he's such a great kid. Whether he played at Alabama or not, I'm very familiar with Tua and his family. And look, his people and where he comes from, they are warriors. They have that warrior mindset. You know, the Islanders, you know, where he's from, where he moved from. And I guarantee you the way their culture works, he's had a conversation with his father. He's had a conversation with his grandparents. He's had a conversation with his mother. Now they're very private and he won't divulge that, but he knows the score and this is worth it to him. He's not ignorant of what can happen to him. I admire the fact that the kid got courage and got a backbone. I am in fear for him because I do not want to see Tua in 10 or 15 years from now in a poor condition. And I'm rooting for him. I did think it would be a possibility he would come back with a Guardian cap, but he's prideful. And look, he's aware of this. He knows. He's been told. It's all over social media. These guys, so many that ended themselves from CTE and all those, you know, that 25, 30, 40 years ago, we didn't have the knowledge that we have now. And so, I mean, Tua and his family, and if something happens, they should not, I'm with you, Eric, they should not get a penny. He's been made aware. He's not ignorant. Yeah. But I do think it's big and tough. And look, I understand him and try to understand his culture. I think one more and that might be a wrap.
So,
well,
you know,
I just can't believe. First of all, I don't think everybody's making a big deal of the Guardian cap. There's zero evidence that's gonna help.
Yeah. They haven't been making that big a deal about it.
It's all about your head and your brain getting jarred and
up against your skull,
against the side of your skull. So I'm not sure how much that helps. Maybe it helps a little. I don't know, but I mean, first of all, he comes back and plays, which he's going to do. I think he gets another concussion this year. I think that's guaranteed. I think he needs to work the neck machine, build them neck muscles up. And you know, here's you guys are gonna like this. You're not gonna like this. It's been proven all the soldiers returning back from Afghanistan and Iraq and all the brain trauma. I know a guy personally who blown up 2 or 3 times in Iraq, and he gets medical marijuana because it helps his brain, helps heal his brain.
Yeah,
it helps him deal with all of it. And the NFL, they need to, if they really care about these players' health, I mean, it's a scientific fact. It helps your brain. They need to be open to this kind of thing. If they really want to save these guys, if they're really looking after their futures like they keep claiming they are, they need to let these guys be able to do that sort of thing if it's going to help.
What were the caps that players wore back in the day? You guys remember Steve Tasker? He was a fantastic special teams guy for Buffalo.
Yeah, that foam little crown thing.
In those caps to these Guardian caps now, can he wear something like that?
I think the Guardian is probably superior to what Tasker had. The thing that was good about Tasker's was it was detachable. So like anything. If it breaks it apart, that helps lessen the blow.
Yeah.
But do you really want to see the NFL reach a point where, number one, are they going to have players after so many concussions have to sign a waiver to come back in the league?
I think they should have to sign a waiver before they come in the league.
See the NFL start dictating to players whether they can or can't play in their league. I mean, it becomes a pretty slippery slope when you put the power of whether you can play in the NFL to
the other option. The other option, which I mean, I think Brock has posted again, alluding to it. The other option is retard the helmet. So go back to leather helmet, take off a face mask. Nobody use their head for a weapon again.
Yeah, they don't have the problems in rugby and some other sports.
For a weapon again. They won't get their heads in there. You ever watch those old football games?
Yeah.
The old film. They're all shuffling around like Babe Ruth. They tackle. Nobody's using their head.
Right.
Yeah.
We are. Did you have any more that you really wanted to hit, Eric? If
Well,
not,
we kind of talked about a little bit. Godwin and Evans are out in Tampa Bay, so that's definitely going to affect Tampa Bay going forward. Godwin's out for the season, and Evans is out till I think at least week 11. I think that's their bye week, so probably week 12. We mentioned that Daniels is questionable for the Commanders, and it looks like at least at this point he probably is not going to play. Real quick, we've touched on this in the show before. Reddick and the Jets get the deal done.
so if you're a Jets owner, if you're the Jets owner, and his fines had reached $12 million, and you basically had the right to waive that fine, and you did, just to get him into camp. Haven't you basically signed your paper to the rest of the players on your team to never be able to enforce a fine again?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
And you're doing this now, and your team is 2-5. So how much really is he going to help?
They're so desperate.
The biggest thing, and I tried to, the article that I read, it did not say they signed him to a 4-year, however many $1 million contract.
Yeah.
They went through how they dispersed everything and what the incentives were. And so it was like a Chinese puzzle to me. I'm like, I ain't reading it. Maybe at the end of the article it said, but it works out to a 4-year, whatever $1 million contract. I just thought, man, what a headache. So, but Reddick did get the deal done with the Jets. So he is there. The last one, take just a few minutes on this. I'll ask you, and I'll start with Ed this time. Ed, who got the better deal? Or who needed who more? Or who needed who the worst? Hopkins, Adams, or Cooper?
I think Adams is a little bit too little, too late. Cooper is definitely the dark horse. I think Cooper can really help Buffalo. And I think the more he gets to knowing the playbook, the more effective he'll be. But it's hard to say. It's hard to argue against Hopkins, man, because like I said, he don't need to put up 150 a week. He just needs to make those half dozen plays in the playoffs that they need to get to the promised land again. So as long as Hopkins stays healthy, which he's kind of had trouble with that the last couple of years, Adams is out. I think it's way too little too late. So I say Cooper, Hopkins for different reasons. Cooper, I think, gets them where they need to go in the regular season. Hopkins, I think, is definitely a play for the playoffs.
Brett, what do you think?
You know, I'm a big Cooper guy, another Bama guy. He's the total opposite of Stephon Diggs. Quiet, humble. He's one of those guys in the locker room. You have to start a conversation with him. He's not going to be whining and complaining, oh, throw me the ball. I mean, hell, he was in Cleveland. Never heard a word out of him. He's not 25 anymore, but I think he is absolutely a perfect fit in Buffalo. And with Kansas City, we'll see. I mean, their defense is, I mean, my goodness, they're still undefeated. And Patrick Mahomes, I think, has thrown for 6 touchdowns and 8 interceptions this season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what can you say? I mean, Spagnuolo or whatever, Kansas City, he's got that defense on lockdown. And it's a good thing that they do have him and that he hasn't went on to a different franchise, because Kansas City, with how their offense has performed this year, they could absolutely be a 3-3 team right now, but they're not.
Right. Chad, anything?
Well, I think Amari is the steal of the bunch because his cap hit is like $860K. So he does not cost him anything. Adams, not only is he not going to save your year and get you into the playoffs, his contract is going to kick you right in the nuts because it's way too much and they're paying it all. Hopkins, we'll see. Ed could be right. And that's all they want is to get him ready for the playoff push or the end of the season push. You could absolutely be right. I'm not sure he's not gonna add much week to week. I think I think he's still capable of making some big plays, like Ed said. But if you're going to need those first downs, if you're going to need that crucial pickup to keep a drive going, I don't think he's your guy. I think he's a red zone target. Gives you enough. I mean, so somebody besides Kelsey is a red zone target. It turns him up, makes him available. But I still don't know. I mean, can Kelsey keep this up? Can he keep going all season long, making your first downs? Who else are you going to throw to?
I mean, I'm kind of leaning toward Cooper. I mean, I think Amari gives Buffalo a little more spice, takes a little more pressure off of Josh Allen, and really solidifies what I think, Buffalo being a competitor again. Kansas City was always going to be in the mix. So my question to you was, or I'll throw this out to everybody. Does Hopkins make any difference in your mind as to whether Kansas City is going to win or lose the Super Bowl, or not make it or not make it? Does Hopkins really make that big a difference?
After I said what I said, if I thought about it, Cooper Kupp is the one that makes me wonder, why did Kansas City not go for Kupp? I mean, he's coming back this week. He's clearly younger and better at this point. He's still old, man, but he's more proven at this point than Hopkins is. But maybe they're not totally sold on his health, which makes me think they're going to depend on Hopkins to contribute right now. Because otherwise, like I said, the Rams were willing to pay almost all of Kupp's salary.
Was he a panic buy?
Why
was Hopkins a panic buy?
I think Hopkins was a panic buy.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe Ed's right.
All right. Well, what we're going to do is, because we're picking 7 NFL games this week. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break because our sponsor deserves some time too. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into the predictions of the week. We'll be right back. Wild Sun's currently going for the best winery. They won the best winery award in St. Louis area, and now they're currently going for the best winery in Missouri, and they've made it to the third round. They're currently in the third round on the road to the finals. So if you get a chance, everybody around here in St. Louis land that's knows about Wild Sun, jump online and cast your vote. It'll be a nice little plaque to have on the wall going forward. Okay,
yeah, you sound like a shareholder.
What's that?
You sound like a shareholder.
Yeah, I kind of do, don't I? Yeah, I kind of do, don't I?
First game.
All right, you're gonna run the games for me. First game, we got Thursday night game tomorrow night. We got Minnesota 3-point favorites at 5-1 going to LA to face the Rams, who are 2-4.
Who you got, Ed?
Minnesota.
I have Minnesota.
If they lose this one and they lose 2 games in 4 days, that could
You're Minnesota too.
Stafford could be auditioning for his next team. You never know.
Well, the Rams have already lost this season to the Bears, the Packers, and the Lions. So this would make it a clean sweep of the NFC North over the Rams. So I got Minnesota. Eric?
I'll take Minnesota also.
I've got Minnesota. Chad or Brett?
I've got Minnesota. I'm worried. I'm worried like Ed is.
Take the Rams.
Take the Rams.
I'm worried they're traveling a long way, and they put a lot into that game Sunday, but I'm going to take Minnesota. I think it's going to be a close one.
I think we'll find out about coaching because I'm sure he's, going to have those boys ready to play because I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking 2 losses in 4 days isn't good. So
no.
The next game we've got on is Philadelphia at 4-2, traveling to Cincinnati, who's battled their way back to 3-4. They can get to the 500 mark. Cincinnati is 2.5-point favorites. What do you got, Chad?
I'm going to take the Eagles in the upset.
You're taking the Eagles, huh?
Yep.
Brett, who you got?
I'm going to do Chad a solid here. I'm going to go with the Bengals. They've beat me to death this year, too.
Good job, Brett. It's my boy. Love you, Blue.
Ed, who you got?
I got Cincinnati. I think the Bengals are on a roll, and just like every other year, they start slow and then they start hitting their stride. They got a lot of room to make up, but I think I'm still not that impressed with Philadelphia, so I'm taking Cincinnati to win at home.
I was a lot more confident about my pick till Brett picked them. I'm gonna take Cincinnati because they're at home. It's more. I know they're all must wins in the NFL, but it's more of a must win for Cincinnati. Their offense is really good. Philadelphia's offense has not been great, so I think Cincinnati wins in what could look like even a shootout. But Cincinnati's going to win this game. Until Brett picked them, so it's probably Philly. I don't know.
So Henry, Brock, and Marty also took Minnesota. So Minnesota's a clean sweep. Then we had Brock taking Cincy. We got Marty at Philadelphia, but Henry and Kat both took Cincy. So we got 3 out of 4 taking Cincy, and we got a clean sweep from Minnesota.
All right.
I know why my girl Kat took Cincy. She's a LSU fan, Big Burrow and Chase fan.
I gotcha.
I'm surprised Marty took Philadelphia with him being a Cowboys fan.
Maybe he's looking for a team.
Yeah, could be.
Oh, don't do that. Hey, keep in mind he's an Alabama and a Cowboy fan right now. It's not been good.
Easy on the feelings. Feelings.
Yeah, that's right. Next game, we've got Atlanta, who got boat raced last weekend. I still haven't figured that game out yet. Atlanta's 4-3. They travel to Tampa Bay, who's wide receiverless, but they still have Tampa Bay as a 2.5-point favorite. They are currently 4-2. Eric,
Atlanta.
You taking Atlanta?
Yep.
I took Atlanta as well.
I hate to tell you, fellas, I'm sorry, but I'm taking Atlanta.
I think that it's going to take Tampa Bay a little bit of time to figure out what they're going to do.
I mean, after this past weekend with these two teams, how do you pick this game without just flipping a quarter? Let's be honest.
Right, but it's the wide receivers for me with Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
losing Evans and Godwin. I mean, come on. I mean,
then you got to think Atlanta home against Seattle. Like, what the hell happened? I mean,
Chad, who you pondering here?
Give me the Dirty Birds.
We got a clean sweep. We've got Brock's taking the Bucks. We got Kat and Marty And we got I'll take in Atlanta. So
Wow.
next game on the docket, Green Bay 5-2, 4.5-point favorites traveling to Jacksonville.
Coming on a hot 1-game winning streak.
Which I can't understand how they only have Green Bay as a 4.5-point favorite.
I was just thinking the same thing. I'm like, only 4.5.
Like, holy
Whoa.
cow! I know Vegas makes money for a reason, but
I'd take that all. I'd take
I'll
all
go
day.
first. I'll go out on a limb on this one. I'll take Green Bay.
Yeah, I'll take Green Bay before Brett does.
Green Bay, but watch Jacksonville just boat race them.
I would be totally okay with losing this.
I would be okay with that. In fact, I'll be willing to be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Give me the
Chad, why don't you take Jacksonville just for the heck of it?
I give you those Fudge Packers.
Okay, so that's a clean sweep. Marty, Brock, Cat, Henry, all of them.
Every one of us going to be wrong, too. We're going to be looking at the score. It's going to be 31-3, and we're going to be like,
Go, Pat, go. Go,
Yeah.
Pat, go.
Hey, you guys put the cheese on your head. We got Buffalo traveling 3 time zones. They're 3-point favorites at 5-2, traveling to Seattle, who's 4-3. Seattle coming off a huge win over Atlanta. Who wants to go first?
You go first because I know who you're taking, Ed. Go ahead.
I'm taking Seattle. Buffalo's not a road team to me, and traveling 3 time zones to play this game, I see Buffalo coming out flat. Seattle needs a win because the NFC West is up for grabs, and they at 4-3, they're sitting in a good spot if they can put another win. So I take Seattle at home.
What do you think, Chad?
Give me the Seahawks.
I, too, because of the 3 time zone thing, and Cooper's not going to – they said that Cooper, the touchdown that he scored last week, was actually the wrong route, and he still scored. He's not there yet. So give me Seattle in the time zone game.
oh, God.
This is like the one time I picked Seattle this year, too. Watch them now lose.
I'm going to do you fellas a favor. I'm going with Buffalo.
You'll probably be right, and we'll be wrong, Brett.
We got a split here. We got Marty and Henry agreeing with Brett, and we got Kat and Brock siding with Eric, I, and Chad. So next game, Chicago 3-point favorites at 4-2, traveling into Washington, where they'll most likely be Daniels-less. Washington 5-2. Who wants to go first on this one?
Chicago in a close one because Daniels is out.
Chad?
Yeah, I don't like doing it, but give me the Bears.
Yeah, I have Chicago written down, but now Brett took him, you took him. If Daniels was in, I'd take Washington just to cover me, but I'm going to take
You got to
Chicago.
remember, Chad, when Eric does his picks, he loves to go last, right?
I go first.
Yeah, I can tell.
Because he looks at the records and he knows pick up ground. And so last year in the UFL season, we only had 4 games. We only had
I got to bop your nose at least once, Eric.
So we only had 4 games we could pick. So Eric, he took a job as a head coach in baseball just so he could miss the show when we did our picks, and he could give me his picks like 3 or 4 days later. And so then he knew exactly what we picked. He knew the latest and greatest on all the games. You know how that is.
Yeah.
So ultimately,
he's that guy.
You know what it sounds like to me, Brett? It sounds like somebody outside the SEC going.
Last and final game for episode 14.
So who'd you
take?
I am taking Chicago.
Jeez.
And who'd you take, Eric? Did you get
Chicago?
Chicago?
I
They all
think if
took
Chicago, I think if Chicago doesn't go 5-2 with the second half season that they have,
We're in
you're
trouble.
probably right. They have no shot. But if they can get to 5-2, then everything's still in
We're,
front of them.
we're not on that level to compete for the division yet. We're just not. We're happy with the direction we're headed in, but we're not good enough to
No.
win the division.
No,
Henry
I
took
agree.
Chicago. Rock took Chicago. Marty
Cat
took
took the Redskins.
Chicago. I think Marty's a lot like Eric is. When we first started picking, Marty comments toss up, but he didn't say who. But then after we all made our picks, then he chimed in at the end and said Bears.
There we go. All right.
That's my boy. He knows what he's doing. Slow rolling.
Okay, last game of the week. Dallas
Oh,
trying to get back on the winning track. At 3-3, they're traveling to San Francisco.
I've already got my
San
pick, Chad.
Francisco
So
just can't seem to field the team.
Who you got?
San Francisco is 4.5-point favorites, even though they're at 3-4 and have players dropping like flies every week. Who you got, Chad?
no, I have San Fran.
Oh, you already took your pick. Okay.
I already wrote it down. I just wanted Chad to know no matter what order I was in, I already had it written down, but I'm going to go like San Fran. They have to win. It's a must win. It's at home. They got to win it.
I'm also taking.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm also taking San Fran. I think that Dallas is being set up to just go into a complete free fall. They got a schedule is a killer schedule, and if they don't win this game, as far as I'm concerned, they have no shot. Now, Henry, Marty, Cat, they all don't agree. They all take Dallas.
Marty's a diehard Dallas fan, so I knew that.
He should have taken San Francisco to cover himself. I'm telling you, Marty, it's tough for Bears fans to take Chicago. You should have taken San Fran.
I'm gonna take San Fran.
Marty early enough so he had time to respond, but we should have asked Marty why he's picking the Cowboys. He's maybe got some insight being a diehard fan that we're not taking into consideration. But Brett, who you got?
He got San Fran.
So Chad, that leaves you as the last Mohican.
Who'd you take, Ed?
I took San Francisco.
Fred. Okay.
We've all taken San Francisco.
Wait, are you weighing the options here,
I'm
Chad?
not.
What are you doing over there? Come on, take your
No, I'm
pick.
writing them down so I don't have to ask you guys over the weekend. You know, I don't buy this whole they got to have this win thing. You got to have in the NFL. You got to win every game. You got to be every game is a desperation game, and I don't buy this. When the Lions went 0-16, every game was a desperation game, and they couldn't fucking win. So I mean,
you meant freaking win. They couldn't freaking win.
No. Yeah, they couldn't.
I'm a big boy. I dropped the real one. So I don't buy that. I think San Francisco's going to win this game. I think they're gonna circle the wagons and they're going to beat down the Cowboys. I just don't think the Cowboys are a dysfunctional, gigantic mess right now.
But here's why when I say this is a must-win game for San Francisco. If we had these same teams up here, and behind San Francisco it was 3-5, and 4-3 Dallas, what does that look like? As opposed to if we take it around, we go 3-4 Dallas against 4-4 San Francisco. That's why, to me, it is a must-win this early in the season because 4-4 with the injuries they have looks miles better. Even though it's just 500, it looks miles better than 3-5.
Dallas has just gotten drugged so many times this year in both lines of scrimmage. They've just got such a problem. Yep. I just don't foresee that fixing itself. You know.
Yeah, and I think that's why I say, I mean, there's now only 17 games. So you can't afford to lose a whole bunch of games. Now they're in the NFC West, which is shockingly horrible this year. So that helps their situation. But I mean, you don't think every one of these teams is desperate to win the game?
Oh yes, but I'm saying where they've gotten themselves at 3-4. I mean,
okay, for you looking at them, this is a must-win game. For them, they go into every game. This is a must-win game. And I'm thinking, like, how are they thinking? They don't care about all that noise. They know they have to win. They know they're under 500 and they're supposed to go to the Super Bowl. They're supposed to win, and they're supposed to be the NFC studs, and they are not. And every game is pressure for them. That's what I think.
All right, Ed.
That said, that is the bottom line, right?
That is. Hey, 2:20. We did our best to try to get it in 2 hours. We did our best.
I was going to say, does anybody have any thanks out there they want to put out before we call it a night? And
well, first thing is make sure go to Facebook. We are putting updates, all sorts of NFL, college updates consistently. You can get a lot of information off of our Facebook page. When you and X, you can follow us on Twitter. You can watch us on YouTube. I mean, you can follow us on YouTube. You can watch that way. So yeah,
Brett
check us out.
Give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, give
Brett
us a thumbs
is
up
a
there.
posting fool. If
Yes.
it's news, Brett's
It's on there.
I'm working on it.
Brett, how many followers are we up to on Facebook right now?
650-ish.
Yeah, 655.
655.
So thanks,
For a young
everybody.
show,
Give us
so
a
we
follow.
appreciate if you haven't already. Go on our page and follow us. We'd sure appreciate it. Eric's looking to buy stock in this show, so he wants to see
Yeah.
it.
Get that value up.
So let's ramp it up here. Let's ramp it
But
up.
we sure do appreciate all
Thanks to
you
our
fans.
sponsor.
We appreciate you coming on each and every week and watching our show. I'd like to say it is a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun. Nothing like 2 hours plus of talking football every week. So thank all three of you guys for being on the show as well. Hope everybody has a awesome rest of your week. Let's get ready to watch some football starting tomorrow night. NFL is going to rule the weekend. College is kind of light on some of the games this week, but with having said that, take care,
Go Rams.
everybody.
Go ahead.
If you heard it on our show, that is the bottom line. We will see you next week.
Thanks.
And that's the bottom line.